And to keep our AI discussion grounded and in the practicality of not-for-profits, we have the pleasure of 3 highly respected Australian not-for-profits that have AI innovation of front of mind. So joining us to talk to examples of their AI adoption so far, we have Linda Bocher, and please make sure that, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Okay, Linda Bocher. Process Improvement Manager, Cleanup Australia. Aidan Rigby, Head of Technology, Cool.org. Lenka Brazda, Innovative Project Lead, Wombat Housing Support Service, and hosted by James Happel, okay, Senior NFP Digital Consultant, Info Exchange. And this session is proudly, do I have Adobe in the front? This session is proudly brought to you in partnership with our friends from Adobe. And we are, come on up. And we are excited, super excited to see Adobe team back here on day 3 of the conference with this tech demo session on designing for a better world, creating made easy with Adobe Express, day 3.
Thank you, and thank you, KB, for providing such great context for our conversation as well. We're very lucky to have 3 people who are representing organisations who have been bold and who aren't faffing around, who are working at the coalface of AI. I don't think it's an overstatement to say we've got 3 AI pioneers here. Them and their organisations are really driving what's possible in this space to deliver impact for their sector. I think today will be particularly of interest because we have a broad variety of sectors. We have a broad variety of AI tools that they're working with. We have people working at different stages of delivery, from people who've already deployed to people who are still designing their AI tools. And equally, we have some tech heads and some not so tech heads as well. So welcome to you 3. Just to give you a brief introduction as to what these amazing people and their organisations are doing, we have Lenka Brazda from Wombat Housing, who's built the amazing Wombot, which is providing homeless services via a chatbot to people. And as you can imagine, in an under-resourced sector like the homelessness sector, having a 24-hour available chatbot is an amazing resource and really provides great access for people who need it in times of distress. We have Linda from Cleanup Australia. They are in the process of building an amazing litter analysis tool, which is going to be an incredible help for them, as you can imagine, with hundreds of thousands of bags of rubbish that they're picking up each year, trying to figure out how much they've picked up and what is the content of that rubbish is a huge task, particularly for their volunteer workforce. And so I think this tool will be really exciting. And we have Aidan from Cool.org. They are working with all our time-poor teachers around Australia to provide them with a generative AI tool which will allow them to develop resources and really help them with their lesson planning and resources beyond that. So I thought we would hear from Lenka first. I hope, and we've spoken about this before, and I know you won't mind if I don't call you a tech head by nature, but you've approached this with enthusiasm and excitement. So firstly, how did you end up in a position of running an AI build project, and what have you learned from the process and some of the challenges as well?
Yeah. I love tech, and I don't think we utilise it enough within the community sector. And so I'm always looking for opportunities where I can sort of expand my skills and learn how we can sort of provide more effective support for the people that we support. So I had done a few IT projects previously, as everyone knows, we're in a crisis in the homelessness sector at the moment with the rental affordability crisis, cost of living crisis. In Greater Melbourne alone, there's been I think the consensus data from 2016 to 2021 was 17%, and I'm pretty sure that has significantly rised. And 29% of homelessness services have had to close temporarily. because they're too overwhelmed and lack of resources. So I was thinking, how can we try and release the burden from the homelessness system, provide workers with a bit more support, because we've also got a very large percentage of workers leaving the homelessness sector, which we can't afford. And so I thought there was a bit of a process which I'll quickly just go through so it makes sense. But through COVID, we knew people were going online a lot more, became a bit more natural, that's sort of where people were navigating. And so I thought, I wonder if we made that accessible, would we be able to get to people before they're in crisis? So that is our main focus, is early intervention. So I'm an action learner, I like action learning. And I'm one of those people that flies a plane while building it. That's how I love to do projects. So I put on an online form just to see if there was any interest. Within the first week, without promoting it, we got 5 self-referrals. So I thought, okay, there's interest in online. Let's see over the next few months what happens. That was going really well. And then through that, I saw some really common themes. So I thought, well, what if we build a chatbot? See what that does. At least then that could answer some questions for people, and then they might not have to ring or come through the phone line or wait until they're in crisis. So that was a scripted bot. I really liked that because everything was very consistent, it was giving all the right information, but it wasn't personalised, and people kept asking it questions that it was never going to be able to answer because it was decision tree. So it was like, are you this? Yes, go here. If not, go here. So that's, and funnily, this was kind of just aligned because at that time, AI was starting to explode. And I thought, wow, wouldn't this be amazing if we could integrate AI into our chatbot? And so that's how it all started. And with the help of the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation, we received some funding to be able to start that 12-month project. And it has been a wild ride, I will tell you. A very enjoyable one. I have loved it, but at times I've been pulling my hair out. Shall I keep going? I was going to.
Yeah, please.
Okay, sorry.
Getting to the good
Once
part.
you get me started, I'm going to stop. Sorry, you two.
No, that's fine. Go for it.
So I've got some stats here actually that I should say. So the success of the bot so far has been really good. So there's high user adoption. So we put it out in October. It was a soft launch, so we haven't promoted it or anything. And I think we've had over 500 user queries. 84% of those have said that they would prefer to speak to Wombot before speaking to a caseworker. Over 65% of people used it after hours, which is essentially why we put it there, because you can't predict when a crisis is going to happen, and it always seems to happen when there's no one available. There's been a 90% automation rate, which means that it was able to answer questions or refer people onto appropriate services without having to come through to our workers. So that's obviously alleviating pressure from our caseworkers. And there was a 4.6 user average rating, which means that people like using the bot and they're finding it useful, which is encouraging. And we've built it with, we use user-centered design. So I am constantly monitoring it, seeing what's happening, seeing where there are any pain points and sort of, adjusting and adapting as I go. The challenges, one of the major challenges was taming AI. So initially when we got the funding, I thought, this will be so easy. I'll just integrate it in and I don't have to do anything. I'll sit back and I'll let AI do all the work. No, it was very, very difficult. Generative AI in its nature wants to be creative. It's generating things on probability. So it likes that creative freedom to be able to say and do whatever it sort of thinks that it should say. And because we're dealing with such a vulnerable cohort, I needed it to say consistent things, the same, and always have fallback mechanisms that have the same contact numbers. And it just wouldn't do it. So I had to spend a lot of time on prompt engineering, really thinking about my instructions. It was a lot of trial and error. And I think we finally kind of got it to a point where we're quite happy with it. It's doing quite well. But I like to test different models. So every time I do that, I need to change and tweak the instructions again because, a different model brings different things. So there's all these kind of things, I guess, to learn with, but I could definitely just leave it as is, but I just like to keep updating and upgrading. And the other thing is funding. So we were fortunate enough to get the grant, but to keep it going beyond that is the issue, and I think that's probably an issue for a lot of people in the sector, is how do we build these amazing things but have them be sustainable so that we can, keep them going. So because of that, I had to build it in such a way that was time consuming, because I would have to, I couldn't just use certain things. I'd have to look at all these different sort of ways that I could connect things that would make it more affordable for us, knowing we may not have funding to keep it going in the long term. And I think they were the two main things I wanted to say. I've got lots more, but I'll be quiet.
No, thanks so much, Lincoln. And I think we all know that, it's particularly the younger generations, they would prefer to speak to a bot before they'd rather pick up the phone. And
Yeah, but can I tell you?
Yes, you can.
Sorry, can I? I'll just take over now. What I have found is there's an even spread across age groups, which I found
that's
really
interesting.
surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So originally we did it for youth.
Yep.
Through the scripted chatbot, we saw adults were using it, but then when I've looked at the data for Wombot, it's actually an even spread amongst all, and we've had someone up to the age of 70
Amazing.
who's used it. So that to me is quite interesting, and why wouldn't we offer more ways for people to be able to reach out to get support?
Very good. So Aidan, I'll throw to you. So you do come from a more tech background, so I'd be interested to learn from you and the team at Cool. Why you've taken this AI-driven approach to your teacher resource build, and what are your hopes for the platform as it rolls out?
Okay, good question. I think probably I'll preface it by the fact that before this job at Cool, I've never worked in non-for-profit before, so it's always been sort of the for-profit space, and so impact has always been sort of just a word that exists out there. But coming into this space, it's very much about impact and for purpose, and these things didn't mean a lot to me, but then they started to mean a lot when I realized that I have to build these things that people are going to use, and therefore for us to be able to report on it, I have to produce the impact and things like this. So coming into Cool.org, I thought I understood what teachers wanted. I thought it's a minefield. I come from a software engineering background. I'm going to code myself through this minefield. And that's how it's going to go. But I quickly realized that software in this space does have a lot of impact. And it has a lot of impact because it touches a lot of very nuanced aspects. And one of those is teaching, education. It's huge. It's kind of paramount. We've all gone through it. We've all had different experiences. But one of the things, or the stats, because we're data-driven in many ways, 76% of educators, and this is a survey that we've done with Good Wolf to do with impact in education, 76% of educators find that their workload is unmanageable. This is so many external factors. This is the ever-changing curriculum, the bureaucracy of the environment in which they operate in, and so on. By using Cool, and we have an existing content library that is for purpose. It's about change, it's about sustainability, it's about all sorts of different subjects. 76% of those people feel less overwhelmed. Another stat which is really worrying is 90% of people don't have time, or educators don't have time to effectively prepare for the classroom. So how scary is that? If they can't prepare, it means what are they actually taking into those classrooms, and therefore what are the students going to learn? 83% of those save time using our resources. And this is resources without AI. These are resources that are just produced by awesome educators, ex-educators that are subject matter experts in their field. So if we don't want to sort of take away the human element ever, and we always, and I've heard this on different panels all morning, and I agree with that, there are time factors that we can talk about. We can save time. While we're talking on that subject, I thought I knew that what educators wanted is they don't want to create lessons. They just want to have it all there and interact with the kids. But actually, teachers really do like creating. they're innovators, they're creators, they like to have poetic license. So by using an existing catalogue of work, we can then use AI to essentially create spin-off resources that allow those educators to start to tune in with the classroom and start to define resources that support specialised learning for different students. Because you never know what type of struggle an educator is going to have in the classroom. We know that we can save their time. We can't change all the external factors, but we can give them the tools to teach different types of things in the classroom at their will. So they are the professionals. They know, they're the subject matter experts. So we just want to give them the ability to have a tool that allows them to kind of craft, their specialty, take it into the classroom, and make this unmanageable workload fun, and bring hope. And we talk about hope. We have a hope framework that kind of leads our organisation as well. And it's about bringing hope back into the schools, not just for students, but for the educators. Because not just are they time poor, but also they're losing hope in the system. And they're losing hope in all of the things that they once kind of had hope in. So if this AI tool can act in that respect, in which it will, we will be able to have teachers using our tool, being able to spin off differentiation for different reading levels, for different types of learning, more action-based learning, hope-based learning, different types of methodologies and tools, pedagogies, ways of learning. That's a new term that I learnt, pedagogies. But it's huge in the education field because everyone teaches in a different way. I just know based on what I was taught in my school by my teachers, and I didn't realize there was things behind it that were like pedagogies and frameworks. So my hopes for the future in this project, that I save time, that I actually produce that I've tied into the need. I would say if in the workplace, my superhero ability would be Captain Need. And I would just go around the organization being like, is that necessary? Is this necessary? Are all these things necessary? And I hope that this project, what comes out of it, is that we are meeting the need, like the exact need that educators want. And that they can take these tools and these tools can grow, and they don't just meet a need for now, and then they kind of come up to us in 12 months' time and sort of say, well, we're back to the unmanageable state. The tool is great and all, but it doesn't meet the new needs for the classroom. So that's kind of, I'm riffing.
No.
I think
We
we've
love
both
it.
been
We love a bit of riffing.
taking up too much time.
Yeah.
And look, I think, having a mindset like that, it's just going to have amazing success, I'm sure, Aidan. And it's really great to hear your enthusiasm and passion. And to you, Linda, I know that Cleanup's been on their own digital transformation journey over the last few years. And so from your perspective, how has that helped you build towards this AI tool that you're developing, and how do you see all those building blocks as essential to the AI process?
Look, I wouldn't say we've been on a digital transformation process over the last couple of years. Believe it or not, last year we finally moved to the cloud.
Oh, well, there you go. That's a journey.
And that was August last year. We'd been with the same IT MSP for over 17 years, who didn't bring anything in regards to innovation. But I suppose just even looking at moving to the cloud and, oh, wow, we can do this and we can collaborate. And it all of a sudden just opened up our eyes to what we could do. So that was sort of the first step that we looked at. And in our business, data is key. And so we had, I'll give you a couple of statistics as well, or numbers actually. Last year, as in the last financial year, we had over 1 million volunteers go out, don a pair of gloves, grab a bag, and pick up litter across Australia. So that was over 2 million man hours.
Wow, that's amazing.
We had over 16,320 sites, and these are registered. So if you can imagine, we've got groups that go out, sort of monthly, even weekly, and go do regular cleanups that don't register their cleanup. If you register your cleanup, we'll send you gloves, we'll send you bags, we'll send you sharps containers, that kind of stuff. But if you don't use them, we don't register you. But they're out there, which is fabulous. Out of those, nearly 10,000 were community cleanups, so they could have been things like Scouts, Guides, Lions groups. We've got some great community groups. The Ahmadiyya Muslim group goes out across Australia and cleans up regularly. We've got FETA, which is another group in Sydney, which is the Faith in Truth, and they're a South Korean group, and they go out and clean up. And then we had over nearly 4,500 schools, from sort of kindy through to high school students cleaning up, registering. And then business cleanups. So businesses can register for a cleanup, but we do charge you for the bags and resources. So nearly 2,000. And then we also are supported by councils, which is just amazing. So for us, data is key, and we actually ask our volunteers. So once you've finished cleaning up, put a bag on the ground and empty out your bags. Can you imagine doing that? All those lovely cigarette butts. So empty out your bags, and what we want you to do is do a physical count on that sample.
Wow.
Isn't that horrible? So I mean, the feedback we've received, I got feedback from one person who said, ask yourself, what is the point of relying on people to scrabble through smelly rubbish just to fill out a form? It's a waste of volunteers' time to produce statistics that cannot be relied on. Our people volunteer their time to do an unpleasant job, and good on them. That's all we should ask of them. So I completely understand where they're coming from. So, and the form we ask them to fill out is not a little form. It's got, I think, about 78 different items on it.
Wow.
It aligns with the CSIRO. They've got an items list for their plastics portal, so we align with that, and we also share our data with them. But just having someone said one day, wouldn't it be great if you could just take a photo? Take a photo of your litter that you've collected and then have something analyse it. We didn't even use the word AI. It was just, how can we analyse it? And I think just that, even that little journey last year, sort of acknowledging that we needed to move to the cloud. Oh, by the way, an Info Exchange helped us do a digital capabilities assessment where we came out between challenged and basic. And now we're working with AI.
Yeah.
So I suppose
Well done.
that's a huge step.
There you go. And you all laugh, but you might be okay. Isn't it great to just hear these stories of how people, how these organisations have got to the place where they feel AI is really going to help them. It's come very organically, not being AI driven, which is really, really key to see. So I think, given the time we have left, I'm going to throw you some slightly heavier curveballs instead of the puff pieces. So I'll go with you, Ak. You can be first off the bat. So what safeguards have you embedded to, particularly when we've talked about Gen AI, and particularly when you're working with children and educators, there's obviously it's vulnerable populations. So how have you ensured that or how are you planning to ensure that your lessons and your other resources are going to be free of bias and other?
Yeah, I think the idea that we want everything from AI, but we have to overlay it with all of these filters. I think so. We want the power of AI, but we want these filters. And so, what would those filters be? I think if some people might know Perplexity, they're a good example of being able to overlay a fact checker, to overlay the ability to source things. And so I guess in this particular project that we're doing, Perplexity would play a huge key. Also, trying to pull from our existing resources, because if our existing resources have been fact-checked and there's an existing library that harbors already seen impact, then feeding that in is a great thing. So I think in that respect, if there's stuff out there that exists for you already, then definitely use it and allow AI to run all over it. The other thing is being able to, the word biases get thrown around a lot. I think everything is bias. I think it's just biased, it's because it's for or against. You're either for it or you're against it, so you're building it around your bias. So I think for us, it's as long, it will be 100% biased, but towards the ethic of the organisation. As in, if it's what we believe in and people believe that our initiative is going to produce the for purpose and the impact, then the idea is that the filter that we put over it is our organisation. and that's our vision, and we overlay that. And I think that's the best way to think about it. So I don't try to think so much about the bias, and I try to think about what is it that we set out to do, and therefore that's what it should be doing, and therefore that's a good filter to have. Otherwise, you get stuck in the bias game where you have to explain your way out of the bias that is already existent there. So in that respect, it's the fact checking, it's the using sources, existing AIs out there, using different AIs as well, and trying to even have them do a little bit of a dance off around information and whether they can come and draw correlations. Being able to use trusted sources that you as an organization believe in, that you can draw information from, like the existing catalog of our resources, which are around 2,000 at this stage, and also other potential news publications and data warehouses that actually host factual information, and that can be checked. So that's kind of the way in which we do it, from the perspective of trying to make this tool as aware as possible, but giving you all sorts of feedback that is kind of being put through all these filters. If you kind of come across to the cybersecurity aspect that we talk about, it's just making sure, two things. Before AI, there was cybersecurity. That's definitely clear. And so there are some sort of methodologies or things that we're going to enact around personal information, and just making sure that if there's something that you're trying to get out of the AI in terms of resources, for this example, and we're trying to say that an educator wants to produce a Year 7 resource in English on a particular subject, there's not a lot of personal information in that, in that regard. But that doesn't mean personal information can't find its way into it, because what happens if an educator's like, well, but what about Jimmy? This information doesn't relate to him. I want it to sort of relate in some sense. Automatically, you're starting to insert personal information into the frame. So sometimes the personal information or the cybersecurity or these types of data privacy things come into play, but they come into play in the most unlikely ways. And a lot of the time, it's humans that, they are the ones that produce the problems that sort of surmount. So I think the idea there is just having policies and procedures around how AI is used, how you interact with the AI that you're building, which is stuff that we've done in terms of policy creation around how our ethics internally, also how we want to measure the efficacy of AI in terms of, yes, it's creating a great output, but a lot of this output doesn't make sense. So these are some sorts of things that we're actually applying. But obviously, you could think of other ways to sort of spin around that.
Yeah, fantastic. And just to take a slightly different track, Linda, it was touched on earlier by Lenka, but there's costs involved in this, both capital expenditure and also the ongoing costs. So has Cleanup thought about this and how you'll keep this running over the longer term?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just build and that's it. We need to maintain and continue developing the tool. And it's something that we have thought about, and I've budgeted for next year as the financial year's coming up. It's been, I suppose, as I said, data is key for us, and I think it's a no-brainer that we need to continue to develop this tool. Otherwise, we're going to be left behind. We're not a scientific organisation. We're not CSIRO, but we advocate and we help with policy, and we need this tool to provide us with with that data, real-time information, so we can go back and help influence what's happening in our environment. So that's exceptionally important. We're working with a developer who has got the user experience top of mind, which to us is the most important thing. As I said, we had over 1 million volunteers last year. And with last Clean Up Australia Day, that was on March this year, the first Sunday in March, we had over 800,000 volunteers across Australia volunteer in just the month of March. So we can't expect everyone to go out with a form, pencil and paper, and fill out these forms. And then what they do is they send it back to us. and get us to input it. Now, ideally, we'd like to get them to do it online, and we give QR codes, etc. But there's also a cost in that as well. There's a cost of, for the paperwork, and it really is something that we need to do. And if we need to stay relevant to the Australian environment, that's what we need to do. So I think it's really important.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, we're a team of 10. We all work. I work part time. I work 3 days a week. So there are about 8 FTEs that mobilised over 800 million Australians in March this year. So we need to do things smarter.
Yep.
And I think that's a great way of starting.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Linda. And so, Lenka, your bot's been out there for a while now. I'd like to hear, has there been some unexpected surprises in terms of the conversations or where it's gone? Have there been any red flags? Have there been any, dramas or emergencies that you've had to deal with?
The thing I touched on earlier about the age groups, that was a bit of an unexpected outcome for us. So that's been really important. And also frontline workers. So, I guess I did think frontline workers would use it, but I wasn't really gearing it towards frontline workers. So that's been quite unexpected and interesting. It's given me many more ideas. But the homelessness sector is very confusing. It's very overwhelming. And it makes sense that, workers are also trying to access the tool. And I just wanted to say, just quickly plug, we do link with resources. So we link with Ask Izzy, we link with Dear Landlord, which is by Justice Connect, we link with Tenants Victoria, and a whole bunch. There are resources out there. We don't need to recreate the wheel. There's things that are out there. Let's work out how we can utilise those. So that's kind of what were the unexpected, I guess, things. Was there any other bit to that question? Sorry.
Just have any red flags popped up? Have you had to, take it offline for any reason? Anything?
Oh, yeah. Well, very early on, occasionally it would hallucinate, but now we've put in these really strict guidelines. It's not allowed to search the web. It can only search our knowledge base, which is what Aidan was touching on before. It can, if it can't find it in the knowledge base, then it's not supposed to answer. It does prioritise safety, and here's really interesting. Someone went on there asking about what they can do to stay safe during Cyclone Alfred. Technically, not really what the bot should be doing, but it prioritised safety because that's what it's been told to do. So it did say, this is sort of the information really a bit outside of what I should be providing, but I want to make sure you're safe. Here are what you should do. Here's the numbers you collect. And technically, that person is at risk of homelessness. So the bot didn't do anything wrong, but you just can kind of see where the lines kind of get a bit blurred, and you've got to kind of work out where you want to draw the line and where you're going to allow it to be a bit more free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's just as important to celebrate the successes that we have, as well as explain the real world risks and things that happen out there. Particularly from people who are actually out there doing it. So it's great to hear from you. In the brief time we have left, I'd like to hear from each of you, particularly from your where you are in your journey of AI deployment, and what lessons you'd tell to our wonderful audience about the process and about what perspective you'd give them. Maybe Aidan, you could start.
Okay, I think that. Probably coming from the software perspective, MVPs, they're really powerful, minimum viable products. If you find a need, validate that need. It can be super simple, and then act on it. It doesn't have to go through all these layers for you to go out to 20 different focus groups and things like that. If you've got like a real need for it and there is a focus group that is finding that really necessary, my advice is there's no time better than the now to sort of get going, because I think what happens is we get wrapped up in the fears of things, in the which AI are we using?
Yeah, and the fear of it, right?
Yeah. And look, my dad still thinks AI's the AI, right? So I think we're already further ahead than him in that respect. But so like ChatGPT, Claude, like there's all sorts of different ways from which you can learn. And there was quickly like a little question on here that I'll just answer in this advice, which was to do with the big companies, the big tech companies. They pioneer to a certain respect in the same way that any big company like pioneers, but they're like a baseline, and you can kind of move around them, and you can use them for things, but you don't have to use them for everything. And so I think that just use AI where AI is required, but there's all sorts of other tech that exists that's outside AI that you can kind of plug in. So it's just find the need, find the software that fits the need, find the architecture and the implementation that fits the need, and that's it. And you'll find that you're running pretty lean and it's looking pretty good.
Beautiful. Okay.
Oh, so many things become allergic. I would say AI can be really overwhelming. There is so much out there. Stuff's coming out all the time. I remember when OpenAI did their 12 Days of Christmas, I almost had a heart attack. Something new came out every day. And I was like, oh, how am I going to use this? How am I going to use that? Oh, my God. I think just try not to get too overwhelmed. Start small. If you've got something you want to work on, start small. They can act as building blocks later on. You don't have to do the big thing now. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they think, oh, well, it's too much out there, I don't really know what I'm doing. Just start small. Even if you just start for yourself, start getting to know AI, learn how it works, and then you can learn how it's going to be able to support your service.
Fantastic.
And I'd suggest we're focusing on the user experience. I said to our developer this morning, I had a meeting with them, they're located in Melbourne, I'm in Sydney, and I sort of said, to me, AI is just a magic black box. And they said, it is. So from my perspective, I want to make sure that with over 1 million volunteers, that we can make this tool accessible, fun, easy to engage, and so we get the most out of it for both them and the environment. And yes, I want the tool to work, and I want it to but it's more about the user experience and getting that feedback and hopefully, as we move forward, training and getting a lot more robust data in real time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, because I've had to sacrifice a lot of things because it's just not what the user wants or needs, and it's not about me. It's not about what we want. And even in terms of data collection, there are certain things we don't do because we're keeping the user at the forefront of the tool. So, yeah, absolutely agree with what you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just looking at the time.
I know it's gone so quick.
Yeah, but I agree.
Well done. High
Fantastic.
five.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. It's an awesome talk.
Thank you.